Hey guys, welcome back to the channel by bymwu. I'm bymwu, aka Marianne, and in today's video we're going to be going through everything that I knit in 2024. I thought it would be fun to do a try-on of sorts and walk through every garment / accessory that I made and just chat about it, maybe include a bit of a roast or toast kind of style. Before we get started today, I want to do a quick kind of like note / disclaimer section. Number one, I am trying a new mic system. Holding it here like this is very foreign to me. I know it's very like trendy on all the social media right now, but I thought it'd be fun to try. I don't know. Hopefully the audio quality is okay. Number two, just because this is how much I've knit in 2024, I want to caveat that that is by no means supposed to provide any pressure to you. I just want to say that everybody's on their own journey, so as long as you're having a good time, it doesn't really matter what your output is. This just so happens to be what I did in 1 year. Number three, I want to note that even though we're doing a little bit of a roast or toast style, if a roast occurs, it is by no means a reflection of the designer. I have the utmost respect to all the designers out there. They do an incredible job and everyone's just trying their best. This is mostly going to be a reflection on the process that I experienced and or the finished garment, largely if I wear it or not, or like how much I use it. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about stuff like this. We're just here to keep things light, fun, breezy, airy, you know, just having a good time. So with all of that, let's get into the actual garments. All right, the first one that we're having here today is the Turtle Dove Shawl by Sari Norland. And I'm actually cheating a little bit because I finished this one at the end of 2023. So it technically shouldn't be in this video, but I'm including it here because I didn't actually get to squeeze it into my Everything I Knit in 2023 video, and I felt like it should have a moment on the channel. So this is the Turtle Dove Shawl. It's a really cute kind of like triangular shawl-like shape that has really lovely cabling on it. And this was part of Sari Norland's like 2023 Christmas Advent knit, where she released a section of the pattern every week until Christmas. So it was kind of like a fun knit along. I knit it in a really beautiful like wool tweedy yarn. It's red with a little bit of white speckles, which I think is really cute. And I really like it in this specific outfit, but to be totally honest, I don't wear it too often because I think the proportions are just a little strange for me. This is the scarf shawl thing shape. You can see it's got a little bit of a triangular look. It's a decent length, but because it gets relatively thick in the center, I find it a little awkward to wear. I really do love the pattern and the cabling, and I adore the colors that I chose. That being said, I think overall it's just not something that I gravitate towards very often. It's a great pop of color in terms of including in the background of my videos, which is why you probably always see it hanging up on my door. But overall, probably a little bit of a roast, even though I love the process and I love the finished product in theory. I just don't really use it. I will say that I have a photo of Jube wearing this when I had casted it off. I think it looks incredible against her white fur hair. Poodles technically have hair, so it's technically hair. Anyways, doesn't matter. And I love that photo of her. Maybe I should get her to wear it more, like as a neck scarf. I think it's really cute. This is finished object number 2, which, by the way, we're gonna be going in order chronologically from finished date. So some of these things, while I might have started earlier, I'm gonna like show them in this video based off finished date. So this was the Alder Sweater, the first finished sweater that I had in 2024, even though I started it in October 2023, and it's a Rebecca Clow garment that I'm obsessed with. I love it so much. It's so warm, it's so thick. I think it's really cozy. It's a raglan with this like star shape on it, and it has like slip stitch coloring, so it's very straightforward from a knitting perspective in terms of color work. This is knit in, oh, I can never get it right. It's like West Yorkshire Spinner Bluefaced Lancaster Fleece, DK, something like that name. It's a really long name. And I've used the color Ecru and Berry to create it. Despite it being like more of a fleece type wool, it's worn really well. There's like no pilling at all. There's definitely a little bit of fuzz, and I've noticed as I've worn it, I think that the berry color, which is like the red, has lost a little bit of its vibrancy. It was a little bit more vibrant before, but still against the white, it looks amazing. So this is the first finished sweater that I had in 2023, and I felt like it kicked it off on a really good start. I remember feeling so incredibly proud of myself for finishing it, and I'm still really happy overall. The next project's actually downstairs, so I'm gonna have to go run and grab that, and I'll be right back. And we're back, and this one is the Pimpom Shawl by Laura Penrose. I actually knit this for her as a test knit, so the pattern was graciously gifted to me. However, I did buy the yarn myself. This is made with two kinds of superwash merino fingering weight yarn held double. I don't remember the names of them, so I'll be sure to leave all the yarn names and the pattern names in the description below if you're interested. When I saw this as a test knit call, I remember jumping out of bed to go check my stash to see if I had yarn that I could use in it, because I really wanted to apply and get it, and I'm just so happy that I got it. This one is mostly garter stitch. It has a little bit of scallop detailing along the edging, and I think it's just so fun. It's DK weight, it knits up really quickly, it has a little bit of an I-cord edge along the front. I love it. I think it's so cute. It definitely is a little hard to show in photos. It's got a pretty big wingspan. This was definitely a toast in terms of the process, the finished garment. This has become my favorite work from home, like throw over accessory. I was downstairs because I was wearing it the other day and I left it near the dining table. But usually it's draped over my office chair and I just like throw it on when I'm feeling a little cold and want to be a little extra cozy. Yeah, this was a great toast to February. So I was in a bit of a test knit craze at the beginning of 2024. A lot of what I had done early on was test knits, and this was one of them. So this was a test knit for the Knitting Deer on Instagram, also known as Lucia, I believe is her name. And it's this beautiful blouse that features cable detailing. Originally, it was made in mohair, like her original version, and a lot of the test knitters did a mohair. However, I opted for a non-fuzzy fingering weight cotton merino blend. This one, I believe, was like Philomene and something. I don't remember the yarn brand, and the color Eugenia, and it's this beautiful purple with like a very light pink in it. Like, it's really subtle, super subtle, but it's a beautiful yarn. It knits up beautifully. The cotton merino, I think, would be a great like summer shirt if you were to make a t-shirt with it. A little bit more on the expensive side because it is hand dyed. I adore this shirt in theory. I just never wear it because I find it very difficult to wear. So unfortunately, it is a little bit of a roast project. I just think that the V doesn't suit my personality very well. The lace is beautiful, but when you wear it with a long sleeve like this, it doesn't work. But when you wear it with like a tank top, it kind of, at least in my mind, looks a little strange with like a tank top underneath and then like skin color on different sections. I briefly brought this up in my summer knits video where I went through all of my summer knits and ranked them. And some lovely viewers tried to give me some tips in terms of like what I could do. And one of the suggestions was to wear it backwards, which I thought was really fun. But unfortunately, the neckline's a little too high for me to wear it backwards. So I'm just kind of left with this garment that I think is beautiful that I don't know how to style. And in retrospect, might not have been the best test knit for me, or just the best garment for me, because I don't actually wear lace very often. And it was a very specific look that, I don't know, I just don't think it fits into my closet. But I had a great time test knitting it. The actual knit itself is super fun. It has a lot of different like types of textures. There's some cables in some sections. There's some like eyelet detailing in some other sections. And it was a really fun knit. The construction is really interesting because it has this like crossing over piece in the front. So yeah, overall, the experience was a really great one. I really enjoyed that, but the actual garment, I don't really gravitate towards, unfortunately. Surprise, surprise, yet another test knit. This one is the Wishful Sweater by Lily Kate Makes. This one is a super fluffy sweater with balloon sleeves, and this one I believe was made in Drops Air. Maybe Drops Wish, I can't remember exactly, but it's a blown alpaca wool nylon blend yarn that's on the relatively more affordable side. I think this sweater came up to be about like 70 Canadian dollars, which is pretty affordable for like a full sweater. It also knits up very quickly. I think it was knit on 6mm needles because the yarn, I want to say, is a bulky weight. Don't quote me on that. I think the construction of it is genius. It is a really classic shape. It is a saddle shoulder. Sorry, I have you can see a little bit of my black shirt underneath, but it's a saddle shoulder along the top to give you a little bit more structure, and then it's just like a flowy, fun sweater underneath. She has really interesting edges because it's supposed to be a rolled edge. Mine doesn't really roll, to be honest with you, but the whole edges are supposed to be just like a little bit more casual. Overall, I do love this garment. Again, in theory, I do have a little bit of regrets with the yarn choice. I think it's a super great yarn in terms of an affordability perspective and a warm perspective because it's blown and fluffy. It's super cozy. I love throwing this on just when I'm like chilling at home. I'm actually kind of hot wearing it right now in a closed room with the sun beating in, but it's a great like just casual at home sweater. That being said, I found that this yarn pills quite a bit. And maybe that's just the nature of it, but it's kind of like fluffy in like a chunky kind of way that I don't really like. And then I was surprised from the amount that this sweater grew post blocking. So I had actually done a swatch because I try to be a good test knitter. I always try to swatch. And the swatch hit gauge that was recommended in the pattern, so I went with it. But then once I blocked it out, it grew a lot. I think it lost a lot of the structure. So in my opinion, it's like a little frumpy. And then the balloon sleeves don't really look balloony because the cuffs didn't like cinch in as much. And so this has become a very much just like at home sweater. I don't really wear it out because it just doesn't feel super refined. I don't know, maybe I'm just a little too aggressive and I don't care for it the right way, possibly. This one is unfortunately a roast because it just isn't everything that I wanted it to be, unfortunately. While I'm here, I'm actually going to throw in the next finished object that I knit in 2024, which is the Lilly Dahlia cardigan. It's actually no longer with me because it was a gift knit for one of my best friends. She had a baby girl, so I knit her a little cardigan. It was also made in the same yarn as the Lilly Blouse, so that beautiful purple, and it was just the cutest cardigan. So first off, the cardigan that I made was such a great experience. It's so cute, and I really like the leaf flower detailing that it has along the yoke. And then second of all, the pattern itself is something that I won't stop raving about because it's a multi product pattern. The designer gives you the option to make a t-shirt, a sweater, a onesie, a dress, and a cardigan. And so it's super versatile for any kind of child that you want to make a garment for. That one just has a really dear place in my heart because it was for my best friend's baby girl, and she, I think, has since outgrown it or might be able to squeeze in it to one more spring, but I probably should knit something else for her. Yeah, highly recommend that pattern. Loved that garment. That is definitely a toast because it was just so cute and so cozy. And I decided to do snap buttons. So for my version, I don't have like buttonholes, and I think that worked out really well. I think it's a lot easier for the parent probably too to like take it on and off instead of trying to wrestle their little one for all the buttons and the buttonholes. So that was another one that I finished in the early months of 2024. Okay, moving on to March. This one was an accessory, so I'm still going to be wearing this sweater. And I'm starting to realize a lot of my finished objects are roasts, but they're not actually roasts because I do like them. They just didn't turn out perfectly the way that I thought it was, but I think that's part of the making experience. And this one is another example of that. The next project here are the Nova felted mittens. This is the second time that I made a version of it. I actually had made a version in 2023 for my husband as dog walking mittens, and then I used them so much when I would take our dog out for a walk that I was like, maybe I should make myself a pair. So I made myself a pair, and this one was one of those experiences that kind of like a shame on me for doing the exact same process and expecting a different outcome. The mittens that I had made my husband were a little too big even after felting, and I didn't change a single thing about them when I made my pair, and they continued to be too big. So this is the Nova felted mittens. This is actually a free pattern. You make ginormous mittens and then you felt them in the wash. Some things that went really well with this is that I used the Peruvian Highland wool. I think it's called wool of the Andes from Knit Picks, held double, and it felted really beautifully. I did run out of yarn midway, so I had to do the thumbs in different colors. This is, I want to say fisherman's wool in brown, one of the brown yarns, and it worked really well. The biggest gripe that I have with them is something that I can change and I should change is the fact that when I dried them, I didn't dry them flat, so you can see they're kind of like wrinkly, which makes wearing them a little awkward. I do still wear them every day when we go out for walks, and they really are good at blocking the wind, but I probably should re-block them and lay them flat because they're kind of wrinkly, my hand just kind of doesn't sit in them properly. Yeah, still highly recommend this pattern. It is free. Don't do what I do, and if you make them a second time, expect a different outcome when you make them the exact same way as you did the first time. But they are great mittens for especially dog walking. I find that they're great to take your hands in and out if you need to pick up poop or feed them a treat or something while keeping your hands warm. They're just really practical mittens. So these ones are, I want to say a roast because the end product's not great in terms of being too big and wrinkly. But honestly, I kind of feel like they're a toast because they're just super utilitarian gloves that just do their job well. So is this a roasty toasty? Is that a thing? Can I do that? Is that a middle scale? This is my video, so I guess I can. These are roasty toasty. I don't know what that means. You take that how you will. The next one is also a gift knit, and this was the classic ribbed beanie that I made for my grandma. Again, don't have it, so I will insert a picture here. It was knit in this beautiful purple. I believe the name of that yarn was called aubergine, which is another name for eggplant, and it is a very eggplanty color purple, and it was beautiful. That yarn was from Fiberwe Fiber Co., which they're I want to say Alberta based dyer in Canada, and I love their yarn. That was their sweet pea sock yarn, which is a thicker sock yarn, but it's great for accessories and garments. That pattern was the Pearl Soho's classic rib beanie, and I actually made this hat for my grandma because my mom was going back to China and wanted to bring a little present, so I thought it'd be fun to knit her a little something. It was a pretty fast knit. I held that yarn double, slightly heavier DK weight, and I think that hat was beautiful. It was as classic as you would think for a classic ribbed beanie. It was 1x1 ribbing all the way around. It has a really nice decreasing crown. My only complaint about this one is that I wanted to use as much as the yarn that I could, but because it's a bottom up beanie, you start on the rim and then you work your way to the crown. And I'm really bad at estimating how much yarn I need when I finish a project. So I think I ended up finishing with a lot of excess yarn because I just wasn't willing to play yarn chicken. That's the only complaint about that. I love that pattern. I definitely would recommend. I think it is free too. Also recommend that yarn. So that was definitely a toast. And it's so endearing getting photos of my grandma wearing that hat. She was so sweet. So I'm glad she likes it, and I would highly recommend that yarn, and that color was beautiful. So next up we have here is the Universal Vest by Hunter May. I believe her Instagram handle is May Crochet, and this was yet another test knit. Again, I told you I was on fire with test knits at the beginning of the year. This one is a very interesting pattern because the way she had designed it was kind of a made to fit garment. So it was a vest pattern, but you could input your own measurements to get whatever kind of size, and you could use whatever type of texture you wanted. It's designed to be both knitting and crochet friendly, which I thought was a really cool idea. And overall, I think it was really well implemented. This one was a really fun project for me. I knit it in a fancy combination of yarns because I was just trying something for fun. This is a combination of silk mohair from Sanna Cardigan with the Make It Tweed from, I want to say Rico Creative, held with Fisherman's wool from the Lion brand. And it makes this really, really dense, almost as if it's felted, but it's not. I think it's the fuzziness of the mohair. And it's just really fun. It's a really fun neutral oatmeal color with the fun tweedy speckles. I overall really like the way the garment looks and the fabric that it created. I have some fit issues that I think were my problem because the way I had interpreted the pattern was incorrect versus the actual pattern. In retrospect, if I was to go make it again, it would be fine. The couple things that I have mixed feelings about is one, I think the armpit holes are a little too high. Two, I wish I would have made this V-neck a little bit deeper. And I think because of that, this feels disproportionate. The torso feels really long. To that point, I think also making it cropped would have helped. I think that's kind of cute, no? That would have required me to take off 3 inches, which this was a bottom up, so a little bit harder to do. And then lastly, I think I would have done more shoulder shaping. Kind of like sits a little bit far out above my shoulders that it gives me kind of like shoulder pad vibes. But nevertheless, it's a super warm garment because it is that fisherman wools and mohair, and it's just something that I throw on in the wintertime when I don't want to wear a sweater but I'm cold. Yeah, that's the universal vest, which for the longest time I'm pretty sure I was calling something else. This next one here is the Aconite Tee. Another test knit. What number are we on now? Like 6 test knits or something? Test knits are just super fun from a knitting perspective because you kind of get to like get this rush, and there are deadlines associated with them. So if you like working with deadlines or that's something you need to keep like motivated and productive, I find them very useful. But this is a beautiful t-shirt test knit that I made for Audrey Barigo. It's a drop shoulder t-shirt that has this tweed, is what she call it, patterning. It's actually quite straightforward because it's made from slipped stitches, but I think it gives it a really unique, fun look. This one also is really fun because it has a rolled hem, and mine was knit in the Knitting for Olive merino in the color marzipan, held with Claret, I believe is the name of the red color. I really like this like cream red look. As you can probably tell that it matches very similarly with the Alder Sweater that I showed earlier. This is a slight drop shoulder design. I think it's super fun and flowy, and despite it being merino, because it's kind of light, the gauge is pretty loose. I think it's a great spring fit actually, and I think it's super just relaxed and cute. Don't remember if I've been rating. I feel like I've like lost a couple of the other stuff. The universal vest was a roasty toasty. This one is a this one is a toast. I'm like losing my mind. I originally didn't really like it, but it's definitely grown on me. It's something a little bit warmer if you're a person that runs really cold, which I am. So despite it being merino, it was super wearable in my opinion. And the only comment that I really didn't like about this was, again, a my fault issue, is that I ran out of yarn for the marzipan color because I was using a leftover portion of it from a different project, and so I had to buy more yarn, and it turns out dye lots are different. Who would have thought? The collar and the marzipan in the sleeves are a slightly different color. You probably can't tell unless I tell you and you really like look at it, but it is something that I know exists, and it's not something that I love. We next have this super cozy cardigan, which might not look super familiar, but you'd be surprised to know that this is the Eva Cardigan by Petite Knit. This is the version that I actually made for my husband, Brian, and it is extremely oversized on me, and to be honest, it's quite oversized on him because I did not gauge swatch for this. I just went with it, and I assumed that a size 2, I think I made, maybe a size 3 was gonna fit fine, and I was like, you know what, oversized is better than too small. One thing I find difficult about doing like garments that I think a lot of women make is that sometimes it's hard to transfer that sizing into a men's garment because we obviously have different like body structures. So while a woman might have like an 80 centimeter bust and a man might have an 80 centimeter bust, the shoulder width is really different. And so you kind of have to take that in consideration. So I was kind of worried about that when I was knitting this. And so I just was like, you know what, we'll just go bigger if needed. It's quite cozy. I actually haven't worn it in a very long time. I haven't worn it probably since I finished it because Ryan just wears it all the time. This is one of his favorite garments. He is a very big cardigan guy, and honestly, seeing this in the camera right now, it's a vibe. I might steal it and borrow it sometimes. This one, I was heavily inspired by a Pinterest sweater that I saw where it was a more tight-fitting cardigan, but it had the same idea of having like a big band of like a cream color and then alternating like stripes throughout the rest of it. I kind of used that inspo to make this version of the Eva cardigan. The Eva cardigan, I think, is known for having 2x2 ribbing, which I think is really clean. And I just thought maybe doing stripes would be a little bit more fun than the solid color that a lot of people tend to make. This is knit in Sanna Cardigan Sunday Held Double in the color Almond, which is this yellow creamy color. And then this brown that has like an ever so slight green undertone to it is called Into the Woods, I think. I always get confused if it's Into the Woods or Out of the Woods, but Out of the Woods is a Taylor Swift song, so I'm pretty sure it's Into the Woods. Some comments about this is that it blocked out a lot more than we anticipated. I ended up buying buttons from Michaels because they were the perfect size, and I think that they match really well, but Ryan never buttons it, to be honest. I will say this is probably the first time that I've seen Sanna Cardigan Sunday pill this much. I think because it's super oversized, it has a lot of friction like with the actual body of it. So there's quite a bit of pilling, so I'll probably have to de-pill that at some point. At the end of the day, it turns out wool is wool and will pill when it frictions. So this is the Eva Cardigan that he really likes, and I really like that he really likes it. Anybody else with short hair have a hard time wearing hats? I find that like ever since I cut my hair super short, the hat just kind of like cinches everything in, and it kind of is like not the most attractive look. Doesn't matter. This is the Porty Hat by Yolanda Teague. She is the designer of the Musselburgh that I am obsessed with. This is her ribbed version of that, kind of. It's not a double folded layer hat in the same that the Musselburgh is. If you're not familiar with that hat, it's basically a long tube that you fold in on itself. This one's just a ribbed one, but it's the same idea where you have a gaugeless pattern. You just kind of start it and then you measure the gauge and it tells you like how big to grow it to. I was inspired to do this because after I finished the classic ribbed beanie or classic rib hat by Pearl Soho for my grandma, I wanted to knit a ribbed hat for myself. However, despite really liking that pattern, as I was saying earlier, I wanted to find one that was top down and that was like a little bit more versatile in terms of being able to use different sizes if I ever wanted to remake this hat in the future for anybody. And so I purchased this hat pattern and I'm really happy with it. This one is knit in Earl Grey Fiber Co., I think is the company's name, in the color Vintage. And it's a specific colorway designed for the Art of Yarn, which is a yarn company based in BC that I really like to order from. So this one's an exclusive colorway. It's a pink with some slight darker pinks in it, which I really like. And overall, I really like the way it looks. Yeah, this one is the Porty Hat. Do I love it as much as the Musselburgh? Not necessarily, but I still really like it. So this one's a toast. And I forgot to rate the Eva Cardigan. That one's also a toast because I just adore that Ryan adores it so much. I was surprised to hear me say that this is yet another test knit. Probably not. This one is a test knit by Rebecca Cloud. This is the Sanna Cardigan. And it is a beautiful lace cardigan that I specifically made in the Cascade 220. It is the recommended yarn in this color white. And it's got this really beautiful two lace motifs that made it really fun. And despite it looking very complicated, it was actually very straightforward. Rebecca Clout is really good, in my opinion, at really considering the knitting experience within the final garment. So the knitting experience is just as enjoyable as the finished product. From this year, learned that lace isn't my thing. And honestly, I kind of shot myself in the foot when I first started this because I made it in white and I don't like wearing white. I especially like vibrant white. I'm definitely more of an off-white, cream, oatmeal color type of person. So making this in a bright white was just like probably not the best move on my part. And then the second thing that I realized that I made a mistake was that I made it a short sleeve. The cardigan was originally a short sleeve, but she did add like long sleeve instructions if you want to make a long sleeve version. And I think something about a lace weight short sleeve in worsted weight wool yarn is just like a weird combination. Like it's warm from the wool, but it's cold from the holes and the fact that it's short sleeve. So like when do you wear it? Maybe because of where Rebecca Cloud lives, she has like a better like weather system to wear it in. But in Canada, like in the summertime, it's too hot. Even though it has the holes and the short sleeves, I find that the wool is just like too warm, especially because this one is not as like airy as like the Aconite Tee, for example. So this one has got negative ease. And then it's too cold in the springtime because my arms are out. And this definitely does not look good with like a long sleeve underneath it. I've worn it maybe like twice last year, once for photos and then once to work on like a kind of cold summer day, but then I was freezing cold inside the office because they blast AC. So yeah, very conflicted feelings about when to wear this. The overall garment at the end of the day is gorgeous. I just don't wear it at all. But yeah, it looks super cute. I won't deny that. This one, I don't know. I guess it's a toast with the caveat that I don't wear it. Is that a roasty toasty then? I think it's a roasty toasty. While I'm here, I'm going to talk about the next one, which was a gift knit for a cousin and her baby. This was the Baby Bear Balaclava by Penelli Larson, I think is the designer name. She is the designer for Knitting for Olive, and I've made the baby bear bonnet a bunch of times and really like that, but because this was a gift knit for a 2-year-old, I felt like maybe a balaclava would be a little bit better in terms of just like keeping them warm and not having them tear it off. And I also don't know or don't remember what size the bonnet goes up to. Nevertheless, I made a baby bear balaclava and I really enjoyed the process. It was a very interesting knit construction, especially because I was so used to the bonnet. It's similar to the bonnet, but then like not similar. At the end of the day, the result was beautiful. I used a combination of Knitting for Olive as well as the silk mohair from Sanna Cardigan, a combination I've used well in the past. I have finally learned how to say balaclava. For the longest time, I was saying baklava, which I know is a dessert. I just can't help but think about balaclavas and baklavas as the same thing. I don't know. They just happen to be that case, but I have now figured it out that it's a balaclava, and it's actually kind of a fun word to say. Balaclava, balaclava, balaclava. So I put it actually on Jube before I gave it to her, and I don't think she really liked it, but you'll see later that I kind of made Jube a balaclava, kind of. Did I forget to mention that one was also a toast? I really liked that project and would definitely make it as a gift knit again. We are officially into finished objects in June. We're not even halfway through 2023. I will say I feel like I knit a lot more like smaller things in the beginning of the year, so things might speed up. You'll see that in September I didn't knit anything, and then I spent a lot of like the summer months working on one big project that we will talk about a little bit later. So hopefully we'll move this along, but this one, say it with me, is another test knit. This one is the Reveries Tee by Herb Garden Knitwear, and I am obsessed with this tee. I haven't worn it in a couple months because it hasn't been the weather to wear it, but putting this on for this video has made me re-fall in love with it. I just am obsessed with it on so many different levels, and if you didn't stop me, I probably will go on for forever. But very quickly, this is a silk fingering weight t-shirt. It's a circular yoke, has some really cute eyelet detailing, but is otherwise all stockinette in the round, and the finishings has 2x2 ribbing. Hannah, the designer, designed this in the most perfect like construction in my opinion. It fits me like a glove. I love the color, I love the fit, I love the yarn. I love everything about this garment. I think this tied with the summer souffle is probably my two most favorite summer t-shirts. They're both circular yoke, they're both stockinette. They're both just perfect in my opinion. So this one in particular is silk. It's made in Knitting for Olive, pure silk, which is a really interesting yarn because it's a little frictiony to work with, and definitely some people say it's really splitty. I did find that it was splitty, but not enough to really hinder my knitting experience. But that being said, it blocks out into the most beautiful, drapey, gorgeous fabric. Can you see the way that this drapes? It's just so light and airy. It's great for the summertime. I am obsessed with this. This one is 100 bajillion% a toast. I want to make another one because I think it's just so versatile. I don't know, I just love it. Please let me know in the comments below what color you think I should make it in. I'm really gravitating towards red this year, so I kind of want to make a red version, but I don't know how wearable that would be, and it would have to depend on the red. Overall, just great experience test knitting, great experience knitting, great experience wearing. I love it so much. I love it so much. Okay, so we were talking about balaclavas for children earlier, and I briefly mentioned that I made one for Jube. Here is this atrocity. I can't even say it with a straight face. I tried to make a snood. They're called snoods for dogs, but it's basically a balaclava for dogs where you can like tuck their ears in so they don't get everywhere. A lot of dog owners like using them if they feed their dog raw food, or in my instance, I wanted to wear it so she wouldn't drag her ears around on the snow or in the rain. She sometimes has long ears depending on how long the ear hair is, like not from the inside, but like on the outside. And they drag into puddles when she's like sniffing around in the rain, and in the wintertime, they like accumulate ice and like snowballs. So I was like, you know what, I'll solve that by knitting a snood for her. And I just went YOLO with this. This was purely pulled out of my butt. It had no thought put into it. I was just vibing with it. I didn't even gauge swatch. I barely measured, and it fit really well before I blocked in. And it turns out that the yarn that I used, which was Knit Pick Stroll in the undyed version, the sport weight yarn, relaxes a lot and no longer like cinches everything in, and so when she wears it, it just like everything falls out. So this was a fail. I thought I'd make it fun and insert some tweedy yarn into it, so it's kind of got like this fun color, but this was just like a pure, just me having fun, and I think it looks weird and it does not work, and it was something that I made in 2024, and I look back and I just laugh because I think it's hilarious. So I will insert a photo of it when she first wore it. It looks like it fits really well, but as it gets wet in the rain or the snow, it stretches out and then it's a disaster for everyone. I think it's mostly a disaster for Ju because she doesn't really like wearing it in the first place. She tolerates it, but then once it gets kind of like sloshy and moving around, she just is like having an awful time. But anyways, this is the Juby Snood, and I do want to make her one in the future. We have since got her a jacket that has a Snood attached to it. Absolutely adorable, but this is everything I knit in 2024, and this atrocity was one of those things that I knit. So sometimes you just go with the chaotic energy, and that's what happened here. This one is 100% a toast for the vibes and the experience and the laughter that comes with it, but in reality, it's a roast because what was I thinking? This is ridiculous. Here we have Summer Soufflé number 2 Sans Ruffle. So if you guys know of the Summer Soufflé pattern or just any of the soufflé patterns from Laura Penrose, you will know that they're gorgeous and they have this beautiful ruffle all around the yoke. I made a version of that like based off the original pattern in the previous year in honor of Barbie Summer. It was a beautiful pink, dusty pink with the ruffle. I have it here. It looked like this. I was obsessed with this garment. I love the yarn that I used and I love the way that it fit, that I loved it so much that I made a second version. Both of these versions are made in the same yarn, which is Katia Cotton Yak, and I think the pink one is called Copper, and then this blue one is called Blue Jeans, and they're both beautiful in my opinion. I got this yarn on sale, so I was like, I love that pattern enough that I just wear it again. It was the perfect summer yarn in my opinion. It's DK weight, knits up really fast. It is cotton, so it's breathable for the summer with a little bit of wool and yak in it, so it's a little bit warmer. I like how the sleeves fit closely to the arms, so it's like super flattering, but it's got a little bit of positive ease around the actual garment. And I love this garment so much. I love the original one too. My issue with the original one with the ruffle is that you can't wear a cardigan over it because you get like a bumpy look on the arms. So this was my kind of fix for that. Is just make a whole new garment without the ruffles. I absolutely say that I toast this because I love it so much. I don't know if I love it more than the original, but I definitely love it a lot. And at the end of the day, I just wear it so much. It goes with everything. I think it's super comfortable. It's super flattering. The only comment that I have about this experience that was kind of a, oh no, was I ran out of yarn at the end, so I couldn't do an Italian bind off. So this is fairly tight. And then when I was going through my yarn stash, I found an excess ball. So I could have done it, but it's fine. I still think I really enjoy the overall fit. And then this, it's still big enough that I can slip it over my head without any issues. And it's around my waist, which like doesn't really move that much. Like when I'm wearing jeans, they're constrained in jeans anyway. So ends up working out. But yeah, this one was a toast. I love it. It's just a super classic circular yoke DK weight t-shirt. What's not to love? We're moving into July finished objects, and I bet you weren't expecting a mohair sweater. You know what? Sometimes the mohair vibes just happen. I started this one back in like, I think May 2024. And the reason why I wanted was because I was doing a lot of silk knitting at the time, and silk doesn't have a lot of elasticity. It is fairly frictiony. I was having a lot of friction pain in my tension finger. And so to compensate, I decided to cast on something that was a little bit more animal fiber based so that I could have that like elasticity, stretchy comfort knitting that I get when you knit with animal fibers. So this was my response to that, and I finished it in July. I didn't end up wearing it until like the later months, and I've worn it a lot in the winter now. It was kind of nice to have a sweater ready for like the fall weather, but nevertheless, this is the Stickless Season Sweater by Rebecca Clow. It is the stickless version because the original one for the top yoke has like this repeating stick looking pattern, hence the stick season sweater. But I omitted that and just made a plain stockinette version. And this one was basically a copycat of the version that Rebecca Clow made because she made a stickless version in this exact yarn combination, and I fell in love with it when I saw it on her podcast because I thought the green was just a fun color, and so I made one. This one is Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color Pea Shoots, held with a strand of Drops alpaca, which is 100% alpaca yarn. I think it's a sport weight, in the color grass green. It's like a very vibrant pickle green with like some yellow in it. It's super fun, and the mohair makes it nice and warm and cozy. I find that the soft silk mohair is quite soft, so I don't find it scratchy, but I am also not a super sensitive person when it comes to like yarn fibers, so don't quote me in terms of like, oh, Megan said it's not scratchy, so I will wear it. If you've been following along for a while, you know I've been going through the hoops with drop shoulder, and this was one of the first drop shoulder projects that I had that really made me started to second guess this construction for me. I still don't really fully know how I feel about this specific version. I think the combination of this relatively chunky collar, which is a double folded collar, with this very small drop shoulder and this really like loosey-goosey fabric just doesn't sit right with me. I guess in my mind, drop shoulder should be more oversized, like a little bit heavier construction. So I still wear it a ton. It's a super warm sweater. It's got this really cute detailing along the edges here and along the back, like shoulder seam. That being said, I think overall this is not the best garment for me. I was originally planning on making a very similar version in black, but I think I'm going to change that and not make this stickless season because something about this fit isn't 100%. I also will say the original time that I made it, the sleeves are way too long. I had to rip them back. So that also contributed into the weirdness in terms of how I was feeling because it was just a little disproportioned. I since made them a little shorter and I think it is a little bit better. I still am obsessed with this color. So overall, this is probably going to be a roasty toasty because I love elements of it and the knitting experience was really fun, but there's other elements of it that I'm just still really unsettled about. I don't know what about this drop shoulder I don't like. And while I think in theory I like a super chunky collar, I just feel like this collar with this drapiness don't go together, in my opinion. The Melides dress. I would just like to start and say that I still cannot believe to this day that I knit this with these two hands. That's crazy, in my opinion. If you don't know what the Melides dress is, it's an all-over stockinette fingering weight A-line dress that is made to fit. Ines has it designed that the dress that you're making is made to fit, like basically zero ease all over into like the skirt portion. And I like, it works. I don't understand how she could come up with that genius like formula and all that math to like make it work, and it's worked time and time again. If you go to the Melides Dress Ravelry page, there are hundreds, maybe not hundreds, maybe like over 100 so like people making it, and they look incredible on every single person, and I can't believe I made this one. This one was another test knit. I actually started it in May, which is when Ines put the test knit call out. This pattern had already existed before that, but Ines was on the journey of including bigger size ranges on her patterns, and so she redid a test knit for this one, as well as revamping the pattern a little bit. While I originally wasn't so sure about applying, I ended up doing so because I had my eye on this pattern for a very long time prior to, and I loved it. I just didn't know if a fingering weight all over dress was going to be like too ambitious for my first year of knitting. So when I applied, I was like, you know what do I have to lose? If I get it, I will take it as a sign that it's meant to be. And I thankfully did get it. So this one, while it is a bajillion million % a toast, I have a lot of thoughts about the overall process. There are a lot of good highs and a lot of lows, and it was just a long project. This dress is done in Knitting for Olive pure silk. It is the recommended yarn, and I used just shy of 6 skeins, I think. I want to say like 5 or 6 skeins. The overall experience was really interesting. It was definitely a test of patience because it was a long project. It's a lot of knitting. I think when Ines explained it to us, she was saying at the end of the day, it's not significantly more than a cardigan because you don't have sleeves, but you have like length. But it's a very big mental slog because when you're knitting it, it grows relatively slowly. And when you realize that you're like starting from your shoulders and you're going to however long you want, mine are just under the knees. I recognize you can't see it, so I'll insert some clips of me so you can see the full thing. But it's a lot of knitting and it can get into your mind a little bit. So it's a long test of patience. If you have any other hiccups in that, it can really impact your mental health. At least that was my experience. So my two biggest things that had happened were really towards the tail end. Actually, there's three things that happened towards the tail end that like really made finishing this project, I don't want to say difficult, but definitely like something you were pushing through. One of the facts was that I had a dye lot issue. I ordered from a little company in Halifax, and they were super sweet. After I had explained the situation, they offered me a refund of the like sent wrong skein, but one of the 7 skeins that I had, or 6 skeins, I don't remember how many I ordered, was the wrong dye lot, and I didn't realize because I primarily worked on this project in the evening in the dark or like in lower light, and so I was like a good way through the skirt when I realized, and I had to frog all of that back, which did not feel good. The second thing that happened was when I was finishing this project, I was really in like a creative mood and I wanted to create a vlog of just my experience to capture it. And it turns out for a large majority of that footage, I didn't plug my mic in. So there was like 3 or so days of work and video work that I had filmed that just had no audio. It was basically like, I guess I could voice over it, but a lot of it was just like, it wasn't how I envisioned that project, and that like destroyed me. And then the third one was that I just don't like the way that we finished the project. Not like, I don't mean to say it like that, but just like this project relies very heavily on like finishing reinforcements because it's a very heavy garment and you want it to like last. And so she has you do like a crochet band along like the edges, and you have to sew in the buttons, and you just finished all of that knitting. The last thing you want to do is like all this finishing work. Is 100% worth it in the end, don't get me wrong, but being there in the moment destroyed me. So that was the journey that I had. This was the end result. I cannot be happier, and I'm so happy that I'm taking away the happiness from this. I will also say I met one of my like really close knitting friends through this test knit, so that's like an extra bonus. I can't wait for the spring and summer to come so I can wear it a little bit more, because yeah, I finished it right before the end of summer, and then when I got back from Japan it was fall and not the season to wear it. This is, I mentioned earlier, maybe I didn't, I don't remember. If I forgot to mention earlier, is a reversible dress, so I will turn it around and show you what it looks like. I usually wear it with the V in front because I like the way that the buttons look, but it has a square neck which you can rotate and wear it in the front. So give me 1 second. So yeah, super versatile. You can wear it with the square neck in the front and then the V and the buttons in the back, which I think is really cute and kind of fun because you have the option to wear something that you've made and spent so much time on in different ways. I personally, like I said, like it with the buttons in the front a little bit better. I find that this is just a little too plain and simple for me, but it's definitely nice to have that as an option. So I won't stop raving about the Melides dress, even though the whole experience was a whole journey, but I think part of that fun is the journey sometimes. What's the saying that they say? Like, it's not the destination, but the journey, something like that, something cheesy cliche, but that's the Melides dress. I'm obsessed with it. That marks the finished object of August, and I didn't have one for September, so the next thing you know, we're in October. So this is the October fit. I finished both this hat and this sweater in October, and both of these projects were the projects that I brought to Japan. So these were knit mostly in Japan. Is that true? Actually, maybe not, because I didn't actually do that much knitting in Japan. But nevertheless, both of these went to Japan with me, and then I finished them up when I got back in October for this really cute fit. So both of these are actually Sunday Fiber Co yarn. The top one is her Kindred fingering in the color Stardust, and then the bottom one is her Solstice fingering in the color Candy Mountain. And of the two projects, I finished the hat first. So this is actually another Musselburgh. This is Musselburgh number 6, I want to say. I've made so many Musselburghs. I love the pattern so much. And I do really adore the overall hat and the yarn and just everything about it. I have really fond memories of pulling it out on the subway twice. I don't know, even though I didn't finish them or really work on them there, there's like those memories tied to them, which is really fun. But yeah, this is Musselburgh number 6. I cannot say enough good things about that hat pattern because I love it. If you're curious about my specific ones, I tend to always use fingering weight yarn on a 2.75 millimeter needle. I think my gauge is usually around like 7 stitches per inch or so. And I tend to make the adult small. As I was alluding to earlier, the Musselburgh hat is a long tube, so it's a ton of stockinette. It's great for traveling, and then you fold it in on itself. Once you start the crown, you're just smooth sailing for a large chunk of it until you do the decreases. I kind of ran out of yarn midway through, not midway, like towards the end, so ideally I would have made it a little bit longer and had a folded brim, but unfortunately was not the case. And so I just kind of wear it as like more of a slouchy beanie, which is fine. Technically, this is Ryan's hat, actually. I gave it to him when I got back because he's more of a hat wearer than I am. But I actually have been wearing it more frequently the last couple days because he has a lot of hats. The other finished garment of October, is the Strange Brew Sweater Tailor's version. And I call it that because this was the garment that I made to specifically wear when I went to go see Taylor Swift in November. And I thought it was fun just because I thought the colors of the Candy Mountain colorway was very pastel-y and it reminded me of Lover. And I just think it's such a sweet sweater. So you probably can see that the sleeves are a little short. I don't really have an explanation for that. I don't mind it though, so it's fine. I still have a little bit of the yarn left, so if I wanted to extend it, I could, but it doesn't bother me. And this is an all-over circular yoke pattern. Tin Can Knits gives you the option to do it in fingering, worsted, or DK, and it's just a great staple as a base if you want to do colorwork sweaters. The main purpose of it is so that you could design your own colorwork. They give you instructions on how to do that. They also give you some samples if you want to knit a specific colorwork that like they have designed. But I just knit a very plain stockinette version because I wanted it to speak on behalf of the colors. The colors made me really happy. A couple comments about this one that make the finished object, unfortunately, a little bit more of a roast than a toast, although I think this is a roasty toasty because I still really, really do love it and wear it all the time, is that this yarn pills quite a bit. It is a loose spun yarn, so it's a 2-ply, like spun loosely together, so it's super warm and cozy. That being said, it does pill quite a lot. Despite me only wearing this maybe 5 or so times, not that many, it's pilled way more than I expected. And I think it's just the nature of the yarn. It is a really nice plush yarn though, so it gives me conflicted feelings because it's a soft yarn that I would love to use again, but given its durabilities being a little questionable, I don't know if that would be a great use of money, especially since Sunday Fabric Co. is a hand dye yarn and she's an indie dyer, so her stuff can be a little bit more expensive. I love her stuff, don't get me wrong, but I think some of the other bases like her Barefoot Sock or even the Kindred Fingering, which is like a 4-ply high twist yarn, probably have a little bit better life expectancy. That's my Strange Brew Tailor's version. This one is a roasty toasty, and then the Musselburgh that I showed earlier was a toast. We're coming towards the last 2 months of 2023 in my finished objects, and it features 3 sweaters, so we're getting there. The first one of the bunch is this one. This is the Stripe Hype Sweater by Veronica Lindberg. This is a beloved Stripe Hype sweater. It features stripes in like batches of 3, and it's such a fun sweater. I knit this because I had been getting a little tired of fingering weight by the time that I started this one. The Musselburgh, the Strange Brew Sweater, and my Melides Dress were all fingering weight, so by this time I was really craving a DK weight sweater, especially since it was more of the fall season in the October-November time. So I casted this one on. I had this planned for a while. I picked all the colors out and I'm so thrilled with the colors. And this knit was such a fun knit. It was super smooth sailing. I honestly think I did this in just over a week time, which is like fairly quick for me. It usually takes me about a month to do projects. And it was just a combination of the DK weight, the fact that stripes make it a very engaging knit. You always have something to move forward to, and then especially with the different colors, it was really fun to work and incorporate different colors. And the way she does decreases on the sweater arms is like super intuitive. You do them by the stripe. So you don't have to do basically any thinking. And I think it's just such a cute, fun sweater. I love this from a process perspective. Again, with the whole drop shoulder situation, this one was the one I was hoping would knack the whole drop shoulder confusion. Unfortunately, this one probably added a little bit more. My biggest gripe with the structure of this one is that there's a lot of fabric under my arms, and I didn't like that it was kind of restricted by like length because of the striping increments. So in my opinion, I think the sleeves and the body could be a tiny bit longer, and in combination with the excess fabric here, it just didn't hit the drop shoulder vibes that I was going for. So I ended up gifting this to my husband. He wears it a ton and he loves it, which I love, and I get really happy when I see it because the colors make me happy, and I love that he wears sweaters that I make for him. So overall, this one's probably another roasty toasty because I love the garment as a finished product. I just don't like it as a finished product for myself, but my biggest joy was definitely knitting it, and I definitely will take elements of it and move forward because I am really inspired by these color blocking stripes. They're just so fun, and while it might not really scream traditional fall weather clothing, I think it's cute. And I think it will fit really well for spring. I've been talking about drop shoulders a lot, and you'll see later that I eventually fixed the problem with a different pattern, which I'm really thrilled about. I feel a little ridiculous in this because it's definitely too big for me, but the second last finished object of 2024 was the Halibut sweater. And this is ginormous on me because it's actually the one and only Christmas gift knit that I made, and I made it for my husband. So I saw the Halibut sweater quite a few years ago, and I fell in love with it. But I just never got around to making it, and then I showed it to my husband and he really liked it, so I was like, maybe I'll knit him a colorwork sweater this year for Christmas. And I brought him to the yarn store, he picked out the colors and the yarn. This is Cascade 220 in Superwash in the color Ruby and Ecru, and it creates this beautiful sweater. So this sweater is by Caitlin Hunters. She's pretty famous for it. It's a pretty popular sweater out there. I think the fish are just so iconic and they're so cute. And yeah, I made size 3. It grew a lot post-blocking. It fits him way better than it fits me. He obviously has broader shoulders, but I am still so thrilled with how it turned out. This was my first time doing stranded color work in the sense that you have to hold 2 different colors at the same time and alternate between them on the same like row. And I had a really fun experience. Despite it being a learning experience, it was a really big joy to knit. I love stockinette, and this was stockinette with like a little bit of like complication, but overall still just stockinette. Also a circular yoke, so always basically knitting in the round, which I love. I did do a few mods in the sense that I did a folded collar. I cut out a couple rows of the fish. All the details and specifics are on my Ravelry page. And then for the sleeves, I did less aggressive increase or decreases so that it's a little bit more loose because the original sweater had really tight sleeves that I didn't think matched the overall vibes. I am really proud of myself for how I managed the floats. I feel like they're pretty clean, if I do say so myself. Some of them I probably could have caught a little like more frequently so that the floats themselves aren't as long, but because it's in the yoke section, I'm not too worried about it. But he's worn it a ton in the last couple of weeks since I've gifted it to him on Christmas, and I think it suits him really well. That's the Halibut. It like gives me kind of dress vibes when you're like a little kid and you're wearing something way too big, but it makes me really happy, and I'm glad that he really likes it. So this one was definitely a toast, and I look forward to making more colorwork stuff in the future. Alrighty, so we have officially gone to the end. So last but not least is the Tendreil Sweater. This one was finished near the tail end of December, and to say that it's my favorite sweater that I knit in the last year is the truth. I was thinking about this a little bit more because I was like, I really like the sweater, but is it my favorite? And looking at the 2024 knits, definitely my favorite sweater of the year. I feel like my favorite like garment overall of the year, I don't know. It's pretty up there. If not top, probably top 3, top 4. something like that. But this is the Tendreil Sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl, also known as Sophie, and it's a drop shoulder that I like. So first and foremost, that's a huge win. Second of all, I love the yarn combination. It's a rustic yarn held with mohair alternative. So it's Sanna Pure Gint, which I love. It's a bit of a scratchy yarn, as fair warning, but I really think I adore it. It blocks really nicely. It's scratchy enough that it like tells you that it's wool, but it's not irritating to me. And it's a rustic yarn that I'm not worried about it. You can just wear it. Like if I was to go skiing or hiking, I wouldn't be afraid about wearing the sweater. Whereas I would definitely not wear my Strange Brew Taylor's version because that would feel like crazy. And the alpaca mohair replacement is alpaca floor something. I cannot pronounce it. I will put it on the screen. But it's a beautiful mohair replacement that adds a little bit of fluff without being mohairy, and it just blends beautifully. The Pure Gint that I used is Tutti Frutti, which is probably like my favorite kind of yarn, which is like an oatmeal color with super light like color throughout it. I just adore it. It has this really beautiful detailing on the neckline, or beside the neckline, sorry, that draws your eyes towards it. So I think that helps with the drop shoulderness. It's not super baggy, but it's the right amount of cozy. I have done a split hem, which is the first time I did it, and I really enjoy it. I think it gives the sweater a lot of like flow, and it fits really well because it doesn't like cinch unnecessarily at the waist. I just love this sweater so much, and it was a great way to end 2024. 2024 was a really fun knitting year, and to end it on this, where I felt like I reached like drop shoulder perfection, like what more could you want? I have nothing but good things to say about this. This is definitely a toast from my perspective. I've worn it a ton in the last couple days, and I will continue to wear it. And I will tell you a secret. I am going to make another one. I'm going to make another one in the exact same yarn combination, because I just love it so much, and when you love something so much, you want to make it again. That's everything I knit in 2024. Thank you so much for coming along this journey and trying everything on with me. I was thinking about this before I started filming, and I was like, you know, I don't know if I actually have that much to share, but looking back without having an exact number of garments that I made in my head right now, I did make quite a bit. A couple of sweaters, a couple of t-shirts, a dress, a couple of accessories. No socks this year, which I'm not surprised about. I haven't been a big sock knitting fan in the last little bit, but that's okay. If you're curious and you want to see what I knit in my first year of knitting, 2023, I have those videos linked below. I actually filmed them in 2 parts. I did them like 6 months at a time. So definitely less chatting, or more consumable chatting than this video. I want to thank you again for watching today's video. If you like this content and want to see more like this, please give that subscribe button a hit. Otherwise, you can give this video a thumbs up. That's really helpful for my channel as well. But thank you so much for being here. Happy knitting in 2025. I think it's going to be a good year. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.